All right, I've Milk back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Friday, July 28, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today. So markets here, pretty boring day, all things considered. Despite, triple Q's up just under 2%. You think that's, pretty eventful, but really wasn't. So we gapped up here. Mini gap and go kind of action. Then we faded a little bit towards the afternoon, kind of like yesterday. And then we kind of, floated back up, and then now we're kind of rolling over just a little bit as we get into the closing bell here for the week. So we have 15 minutes left in the day, and I'll likely take you into the close here. So yesterday, what did we talk about? By the way, fake print here just hit the tape, 452.49. That could come into play Monday. That's on the SPY there. That is not on the intraday. So 452.49, that's basically gap fill. But anyways, yesterday, what did we talk about? I said for the bears, you're going to need follow through, right? Did we get follow through? No. So trend is still intact. My initial guess was we gap up. For the bears, you want to gap up and a sell, but we gapped up a little bit too high, right? Like when I say gap up, I mean 450, 350, 454 max, and then maybe kind of a rally, and then you fade that rally. That's kind of what you want to see as a bear. As a bull, you want to see a gap down into the trend line, into the 20 moving average, and then you want to see kind of like a tail candle, right? And then up and close green. That would give you a nice fuel to push up early next week. We didn't get either of those things. So if you're looking for a dip to buy, you kind of got screwed. And if you're short going into the hole, you got screwed. So it was kind of this, both sides got screwed over. It kind of like how Wednesday worked out, where if you bought the dip, you were happy, and then they took everything out, and then they gapped it up, and then they crapped. So lots of choppiness, lots of volatility here, and this is one of my least favorite market environments to trade, is when you get this euphoria mode, because it's like you can't really just go long up here, because at any point you could get some type of news that happens because of volatility event, where nobody's hedged, right? You look at the VIX, nobody's hedged, and it's hard to short because overbought becomes more overbought, and you just rip higher here. So bottom line though, no technical damage. I'm going to use the spiders again really quick. Remember, we noted yesterday volume, 92 million shares, not enough, all right? So you need more than that. You need 100 million to get a really confirmed top. But right now, again, market's hanging in there okay. If you look at the ES, I don't show you guys this all that often, but you got kind of a bull flag kind of look. So there's nothing to say we can't go higher here. We did hit that level yesterday, and we pulled back. We'll see what we get next week. My guess is we're probably sideways to up ahead of Apple and Amazon. That's going to be my guess, and that is on Thursday. So that's kind of the next big data point, I guess you could say, going into next week. It looks like we're going to close again below 4,600, so minor kind of rejection there as far as the psychological level on the weekly. But again, trend is still up. We have not broken this trend line yet. We haven't even tested it yet. And the same thing for the Qs. So triple Qs here. Again, look at this. Look at the 20 moving average, right? Like ever since right here, it's just been support the whole way. Now, are you starting to flatten out? Is this trend line going to be resistance? And could we have topped? It's possible. There's nothing to say that hasn't happened, but there's also nothing to say it has happened yet. Could we be starting to flatten out here and put in maybe a base to push down to this area? It's certainly possible as well. Maybe Apple whiffs, maybe Amazon whiffs. That has happened before. Maybe some news hits the wire Monday, Tuesday, we come down, we pump on Apple, and we put in a lower high, back testing this trend line and failing. There's lots of scenarios that can happen here, but bottom line, right now, there's no real technical damage. Now, I think we get kind of in towards the later part of August, that may start to change. Data is starting to change. CPI is not going to look the same. I was just talking to my members about this. Look at UGA. Gasoline's up 16% year over year. That is how CPI is calculated. Crude here is now gained 10% here over the last month. So month over month, it's up 10, 12%. We've talked about this lately. Wheat, corn, soybeans, those are all coming off the lows. Those are more like flat year over year. So this is starting to, it's easy to go from 9% down to 3, but it's hard to get from 3 to 2, right? So that's something that could come into play here. I think Jackson Hole will be important this year, but right now, market's holding up. We'll not make too much out of today, or yesterday, rather. I think they purposefully released that press statement yesterday because obviously they knew what they were going to do tonight. Last thing you want to do is have the market gap and go to the downside ahead of a weekend, right? So either way, markets are hanging in there, and we'll continue to respect it moving forward here. Triple Qs, again, until we break those levels, markets can still go higher. Dow here, again, pulling back off of that 355 area. We talked about that. So a little double top there. And then kind of you're into, if we look at the weekly, again, that little weekly pivot looks like we're going to close just below it. But again, Dow had a nice breakout there. And again, it's holding up okay as sort of the old world stocks start to catch up here with this market. IWM had a really nasty reversal yesterday, but again, popping right back up like everything else. And again, technically, you closed below, or you closed above this green bar here. This is still into, support here. So that pattern's not broken on the daily. Could you get up to 200? I think it's possible. 202 maybe even. I think that's kind of your max upside right here for right now on the Russell. But right now, pattern wise, it's still hanging in there just okay. Semiconductors also gapping up with everything else today. Looks like we just hit that double top. Nothing really going on there. Again, you break this trend line, then things get interesting. Until then, it can still go higher, right? So, remains the same there. IGV up 1.32. Again, 20 moving average holding that. It's fine. But you take this pivot out, or excuse me, as long as you're below this pivot, it's going to need to do some consolidation, backing and filling. If we start to head lower, we take this out on a weekly close, then it gets interesting. Then you're definitely going down to this trend line and possibly even down to 305. But again, that's down the road right now. We don't even need to worry about that. Dow Transports here continue to be a powerhouse, right? It's going to close the week above 16.6. That's a sign of strength there. 16.728 is technically that high. It's still pretty strong though, right? So let's give the transport some respect here. We'll just say 17 for now. That's going to be the next level we're watching for DJT. A lot of those earnings are out of the way. Union Pacific had a big pump there. That came off the highs. I think that wants to go to 250, so we'll be watching that one. But transports are holding up, and we need to respect them when they are. All right, so interest rates here. Dollar index actually held up pretty well. But 2-year backing off a little bit. Still trend is up. Again, this is evidence to me that, like I just said about inflation and CPI continuing higher or continuing to stick, but yields holding up okay. 5-year holding the 4% area, 4.18 at the close. And the 10-year backed below the 4% area. But again, big pop yesterday, and, just an inside day, nothing wrong with that. Same thing with the 30-year popping up. This is hammering on double top. That looks like it wants to push up. It's interesting. Keep an eye on this. Maybe these yield curves are starting to turn up a little bit. We'll be watching that. Maybe, right? But something to keep an eye on is you see the long bond kind of getting a little bit more of a bid as opposed to everything else. But either way, still bullish yields until proven otherwise, which I don't think is going to happen. XHB inside day here up 1%, though that can still go higher up to 86. IGB can still go higher as well. Nothing's changed there. VNQ again weak, so a little gap and crap there. Down 1 cent on the day. Nothing great, nothing terrible. If this bases though, this can push through that trend line and go up to 90. So I don't see any real issues here with VNQ. I think one more higher low could get that going. So we'll be watching that one. Keep that on the radar for possible higher lows. XLF, a little bit of a gap and crap as well, though it did come back to the green side. There's a lot of resistance around 83. 36.25 has been a long week. I'm ready to go here. 36.25 to 36 on the weekly is your big level there for XLF, but you basically did back test this trend line and it held, so we'll respect that. KRE also green as well. That's consolidating. That can still go higher. KB can still go higher as well, but it needs to consolidate to get through that 200 period moving average, and XBD pulling back yesterday and coming off the highs again today here. Nothing terrible though. That can still go higher, possibly 530. May need to come back in and test that 20 moving average, so, and that 500 handle first. Crude on the day pushing higher. We talked about that earlier, up another 0.5%. This wants 82.72. So right there. And if you get through that on a weekly close, it's going a lot higher. And the low is in, and it's going much, much higher. But right now, it's just, had a nice breakout there. We're going to close the week above this trend line, above this trend line, and above this trend line. This is the big one. You get above that, and you get above this moving average, the lows are in on crude, and they're not looking back for a long time. XLE, nice price action here. Guess what? XLE is going to close the week above my weekly resistance, so at 85.08. That is strong. So that's holding up. That's a failed, if you guys are not familiar, that's a failed weekly inside bar bear pattern. So XLE looking good. XOP looking good as well. That probably wants these trend lines here. So 145 area, XOP looks good. OYH still holding up, won't give me a damn entry, but it's looking all right. I don't see any problems. I can get to 360, 370. Nat gas, after pulling back yesterday, getting a little bit of a bounce here. Still really like the weekly pattern. Big up move and just a big fat base right there. It's just baking in the oven right now, so that looks good to me. Energy starting to look good towards the second half of the year here. All right, dollar index, which we briefly touched on. Again, it looks just like yields. So a little bit of an inside day after the big reversal yesterday. Little doji, no problems, right? The problem, the daily looks fine. I like that big surge above the 20 daily doji, no problem there. The problem is the weekly. You got to get above 102.56 spot 4. You do that on a weekly close, dollar can squeeze up and make things painful for a lot of people. But until then, give it that bear bias. But if it gets above that level, things get really interesting here, and there's a bear trap in the dollar. Gold bouncing here today with the reddish dollar. There's the when to look at the hourly there. You can see we came down, tried to fill that gap, and now we bounced here. I'm not doing anything with it right now. Almost better to look at kind of the GLD here when you get those big contract rollovers. But right now, gold's backing off here today, and then it got a little bit of a bounce. I'm not touching it at the moment till that chart clears up. Silver did bounce a little bit off the 20. Not a great bounce though. If this starts to go inside and sideways, it's setting up for a move lower. So watch silver here. Platinum also, a little bit of a pause there. I think that can go lower. I'm rooting for it to get one more leg down. Same thing with palladium. Would like to get it below 1100. Then copper continuing to hold up really nicely. Here's another thing too. Year over year is up. Month over month is up too. $4 is going to be resistance here, but it's got a nice little base here. I think this may be able to push up into that maybe 405 area on the weekly. So that looks all right there for now, and that has firmed up a little bit. So we'll definitely respect that pattern. Bitcoin, bit of a nothing burger, but you now have daily inside bar bear flag. So that is notable. So you've got 3-4 candles now inside bar, but you already know what I'm going to say. Weekly is still solid. That is a picture perfect weekly pattern despite the weakness in the daily. So it's going to take a lot for the daily to break down. If it does, then we'll look at it, more closely. But otherwise, the weekly is still good, and I'm just neutral on it, honestly. So, all right. Anyways, guys, going to wrap up here really quick. Spiders, watch that fake print. 452.59 could be something to watch Monday. As long as this trend remains intact, there's no problems. And we'll just respect the market until proven otherwise. Really that simple. Anyways, guys, gonna wrap it up here. You guys take care. Have a great weekend. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Talk to you all next week.